Johnny V. Val. If the state authorities, FBI, or IRS raided various Scientology organizations and got their computers and files, such as FLAG, International Base, OSA, CCHR, WISE, IAS, CST, Narconon, etc., wouldn't the authorities be obligated to read people's PC folders and have to investigate the public, doctor's offices, and Narconon facilities for their crimes and confessions? I understand that when a public or new person comes into Scientology, they receive a PC file or a pre-clear file. After somebody becomes a clear or learns the clear cognition, do they have a clear file? Or do they continue documenting the person's activities in that same PC file? Once somebody becomes clear, not a past life clear, do other Scientologists look upon them more highly? Do clears receive any special privileges or recognition over non-clears? Sorry if my Scientology is off. I'm just learning and a little confused on the subject. Thanks for the question, Johnny. You've asked about a lot of stuff here, so I'm gonna do my best to kind of consolidate all this because I've never really broken this down. I've been waiting for a question about this to do so. When people come into Scientology and start getting Scientology auditing, they are called pre-clears because they are not yet clear. They've not yet reached the state of clear. That is sort of a halfway point between, normal run-of-the-mill humanoid person and an OT. You go from normal, degraded, horrible person to clear, where you're okay, you yourself personally are okay, and then you do those OT levels and you become this, awesome spiritual entity. The pre-clear folder, or PC folder as they are called, because pre-clears in Scientology are referred to as PCs. Very rarely do we even use the word pre-clear. It's PC. Hey, where's this PC? Call the PC in. Where's the next PC, right? So you end up having many, many files, stacks of files, because when you go into an auditing session, the auditor is keeping notes of everything that's going on in the session. They have legal-sized paper, they put a line down the middle, and they just keep notes of what the person is saying, what the commands are, or questions that were asked of him. If there's an e-meter, some of the dials and numbers and stuff off the e-meter, and what the needle is doing is also written down on these worksheets. And various notes are made of time, and so it's a running record of every single session. Some of these sessions can go for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. That could end up with a session this thick, right? Full of paper. You could use a third of a ream, just writing. Some auditors write just a couple words on a page. Others are kind of microscopic. It depends on the auditor as to how thick the auditing session's going to be. I personally have done 2-hour sessions with 2 pieces of paper. I've also seen 2-hour sessions with, half a ream of paper. So the point is that the auditing, they're all put into the pre-clear folder after the session. That folder is then sent to the case supervisor. He looks the whole thing over, gives the directions to the auditor as to what to do in the next session. The folder comes back. The guy does another session. Another stack of papers represent the worksheets for that session and other notes that are made. That goes in the PC folder, and it's in date order, going chronologically, from backward, from latest to earliest, right? From oldest to newest. So you open up the folder. There's some stuff on the front folder on the inside front folder. There's some notes and program references and things as to where the pre-clear is at on the grade chart, on his path up to clear. They literally put a little picture of the grade chart in the folder, and they mark it with a highlighter when he finishes different steps. There's other things in the front PC folder too, a whole stack of stuff. Folders can get really thick. After this folder after folder number 1 gets to be about 2 or 3 inches thick, another folder is made, and your name gets put on it in folder number 2, and the front cover stuff and the back stuff goes in the folder, but all those worksheets stay in the number 1 folder, and it gets filed into a closet, which is the pre-clear folder archives area. Every single organization has one. It's a locked space, and the folders are kept secure. The folders are also stamped and have been since the 1980s with a stamp that says priest penitent privileged file, confidential. So nominally, but with that stamp on the folder, if the FBI or anybody else, police, anybody were to come in and raid an organization, they're supposed to pay attention to that stamp. And this is supposed to be confidential information between a priest and his pastoral, in the pastoral counseling that the priest is giving to the pre-clear. So they're not supposed to have access, free and easy access to those folders. I'm talking about outside law enforcement, for example, right? Inside, in the church, all kinds of people look at those folders all the time, but they're not necessarily supposed to, right? There's a whole bunch of rules and regulations about all that, and that I'm not going to take that up in this answer right now. But that stamp is supposed to keep the outside people out of those folders, and every single one of the pre-clear folders are stamped that way. So you get number 1 all finished, and then you fill up another folder, and it goes, and then you fill up another folder. When I left Scientology, I had 54 to 60, I don't know, something like that, folders. I had tons. I mean, I could stack, against this back wall, all of my folders. So a lot of folders. There's tens of thousands of folders within the world of Scientology that they're keeping hold of. When a person gets to clear, from that point forward, all of their folders have a green stripe prominently on the front of the folder that indicates to you that this person is now clear or above, right? When they go on to the OT levels, the folders have different colored stripes depending on which OT level is being done. I don't remember the color flashes, but it was like gold and blue and gold and blue and red and gold. I mean, there were different stripes that were put on the folders to indicate the different levels. We didn't see too many of those. In fact, you didn't see any of the OT stuff at the local city level churches because the OT levels are only delivered by Sea Org organizations in Los Angeles, Clearwater, Florida, at St. Hill in England, Copenhagen in Europe, and I think Sydney in Australia. There's only a couple places in the world where you can go to get the OT levels. So they keep their own files, right? When you are ready to go from, let's say, Denver, let's say I go clear here in Denver, and I have 50, and I get 30 folders. By the time I go from 0 to clear, I've accumulated 30 pre-clear folders. Those folders are all shipped to the next org I'm going to go to do those OT levels, because that's my next step. And the org's probably not going to have those folders anymore, or they'll keep most of them. Maybe they'll only send the last few off to the advanced org, but most of the time they have to send all of them. But folders get shipped around in Scientology all the time. So when I go to the advanced organization, now my local Denver church doesn't have my folders anymore. They're in LA. I fly to LA. I do my OT levels. Now what happens, and I hope this isn't overly complicated yet, OT 1, 2, and 3 are solo audited. But that doesn't mean I get to look inside the folders that have been being kept on me all this time, because there's all kinds of notes in there about me, stuff I'm not supposed to see, right? Evaluations about me and my case and what I need. So I can't look at that stuff. So a new kind of folder is made for me as a pre-OT, because I'm doing the OT levels 1, 2, 3, right, solo. And the pre-OT levels are OTs 1 through 7. So when you're on OT 1 through 7, you're on the pre-OT levels. Now, because Scientology terminology is already complicated enough, most people just keep calling them PCs or pre-clears, even though they are already clear. It's just pre-clear becomes a sort of generic term for anybody who's getting any kind of auditing. But technically they are pre-OTs. So when you start solo auditing, you get a solo folder. And you're probably not going to have tons and tons of solo folders, but you're going to accumulate quite a few as you go through your OT levels, because OT 1, 2, and 3 is solo, 4 is with an auditor, 5 is with an auditor, 6 is a course, and 7 it takes years. So you're going to get tons and tons of folders accumulating when you're doing OT7. And then when you get to OT8, that's also a solo level. So you're going to end up with a lot of solo folders. And the solo folders you can look in because the only thing in the solo folders is stuff you've seen. It's stuff you've written. When you go into a solo session with an e-meter and it's just you. So you're the one keeping the worksheets like I described earlier while you're auditing yourself. You're literally writing down the time, what the meter is doing, how you feel, the questions that you're answering, and what your answers are. I mean, you're writing all this stuff down. And it goes into your solo folder, and the solo folder goes to the case supervisor, and it comes back. But instead of going to your auditor, it comes to you because you're your auditor. And that's how the process goes as you go up the bridge as far as your PC folders go. So I hope all of that made sense. And wasn't too complicated, but that's basically how it goes. You asked whether clears have any special privileges. No, they don't. No, not really. But they do have a higher status, okay? Everybody wants to be clear, and then everybody really, though, the real status in Scientology is the OT levels, not clear. Clear is like, okay, yeah, that's great. That's really cool. What's it like? Oh, that's cool. But OT is like, oh, what's it like, man? What's OT3 like? Oh, what's OT4? Wow, really? Oh, I can't wait to do that. Like that's, the OT levels are the revered things. Clear is just, clear. Yeah, okay, that's cool. Okay, so I hope that comes across. Thanks for your question, and there you go.